My son caught a frog that wouldn't stop growing. Dad, Dad, look what I found. I looked up from my phone at my son Tyler, who was standing at the front door in his yellow raincoat and rain boots. A heavy downpour had recently rained through our town, and Tyler had gone to play outside as soon as it let up. Take your boots off before coming inside, Tyler, my wife reminded him, as she continued to scroll through Facebook on her phone. Tyler shook the boots off his feet before coming into the kitchen. I noticed his hands were cupped together. He held his hands apart to show me what he had. Sitting in his palms was a tiny frog, no bigger than my fingernail, with light yellow-brown skin. I was stomping in the puddles when he suddenly jumped out of nowhere, Tyler exclaimed excitedly. Isn't he cool? I nodded as I gazed down at the puny amphibian. He sure is. We can set up a terrarium for him. Gosh, my wife hissed. It's a wild animal. Relax, I assured her. It's just going to be for a few days or a week or two. Then when it's nice and wet again, we can release him back where we found him. We put the frog in a small plastic container with air holes as I dug up a glass tank from the garage. Then we filled the tank with rocks, dirt, water, and plants. We placed the frog's tank by the window of Tyler's bedroom, where it would receive plenty of sunlight. And I told Tyler that tomorrow I would go to the pet store to buy crickets or mealworms to feed the frog. Tyler woke me up early next morning to tell me that the frog is grown. What? I asked, putting my glasses on. The frog grew. He's humongous. Come see him. I followed Tyler to his bedroom to see what he was talking about. He was right. Overnight, the frog had ballooned from the size of my fingernail to bigger than my fist. How big do you think he's going to get, Dad? Tyler asked. Not sure, I said, staring at the bloated creature in the tank as I tried to make sense of the bizarre situation. But we may have to release him soon before he grows too big for the tank. I lifted the mesh lid of the tank and reached in to grab the frog. As soon as my fingers touched its skin, the frog let out a shrill, high-pitched screech. The sound was so loud it caused my eardrums to ring. Tyler dropped down to the ground with both hands over his ears. The frog didn't stop screaming until I removed my hands from the tank and placed the lid back on. Marie came into the room, still in her pajamas, asking what was wrong. Upon seeing how huge the frog in the tank had grown, her jaw dropped. I tried lifting up the whole tank instead of just the frog, and it screamed again, causing me to nearly drop the tank. What are we going to do with this damn frog? I said, turning to Marie. She shrugged. Put on some earplugs next time you move it. I don't know. I turned back to the tank. The frog was staring at me, its eyes wide open. It almost looked like it was smirking. I gazed at Tyler, who suddenly looked tense and anxious. I'll try again later, I said. Tyler, do you promise not to touch the frog without my permission? He nodded, and me and Marie left the room. A day went by and the frog continued to sit in place, staring with his big bulging eyes and wide smirking mouth from his tank. No matter how many times we tried to move the frog or its tank, it would scream, each time louder than the last. We decided maybe tomorrow we would try a completely different tactic. That night, I was woken up by the sound of our door opening. I checked the time on my phone, 1:03 a.m. Turned to the doorway where a short silhouette stood against the light of the hallway. Tyler? I groaned. It's after midnight. Go back to bed. I heard a nasally gurgling sound, like a cat coughing up a hairball. Tyler, stop that. That's really annoying. The sound continued. Marie sat up and turned to the door. Josh? I don't think that's Tyler, she said nervously. I grabbed my glasses and turned on the light. What we saw standing there caused me and my wife to cry out in terror. The frog from the tank was standing at our doorway on its hind legs, having grown to the same height as Tyler. It waved one webbed hand at us and smirked and blinked. I leapt up from the bed and lunged at the slimy creature. It opened its huge mouth, revealing two sharp vampire-like teeth in its upper jaw. It bit into my arm, causing me to shout out in pain. Marie ran to my aid and helped wrestle the amphibian off of me. We both worked together to shove the creature into our bathroom before slamming the door. Me and Marie held the door shut as the frog banged on the wood and screeched loudly. I swear to God, the creature's sounds were forming words. "Let me out," it cried. "Let me out." "Go check on Tyler," Marie screamed. "I'll hold the frog. Just go check on our son." I ran out into the hallway to Tyler's room. While out in the lit hallway, I noticed 2 large bleeding puncture wounds on my arm. Caused by the frog's teeth, I guess. But those were the least of my concerns. "Tyler?" I called out anxiously as I flicked on the bedroom light. "Tyler, you in here?" No answer. I looked around, hoping to see him somewhere in his room, maybe hiding under the blanket, cowering under the bed, or peeking out of the closet. All I found were Tyler's empty pajamas laying on the floor by his bed, covered in what appeared to be some sort of dark purple-blue goo. I stared down at what was left of my son, which felt like several hours, before I was interrupted by the sound of Marie screaming. I dashed out of Tyler's room and was just about to run back to our bedroom when I was greeted by an unpleasant surprise at the end of the hallway. An enormous blob of slimy yellow-brown flesh took up the entire width of the hall, topped off by 2 big staring eyes and a mouth open, an enormous wide smile. The creature let out several raspy gurgles. It sounded like it was laughing, its bloated, wrinkled body wobbling like disgusting, rotten pudding as it did so. Then it slowly started to slither towards me, pushing itself through the hall as fast as its stubby legs could carry it. I ducked back into Tyler's room and held the door shut as the thing shoveled past. I then heard several loud crashes downstairs, followed by silence. I peeked through the door and gazed at the mess downstairs. Knocked over furniture and broken objects filled my vision. Most notably, the front door had been broken down, clean from its hinges. The monstrous amphibian had returned to the wet forest from which Tyler had brought it in. "Marie!" I shouted upon re-entering our bedroom. The only response I got was the sound of retching from my bathroom. I peeked inside and saw my wife crouched over with her face in the toilet, vomiting loudly. "Marie!" I shouted, relieved she was still alive and not caring that she was sick. I ran over and tried to hug her, but she didn't respond to my advance. She was too busy staring inside the toilet at her unusual stomach content. I peered inside to see what was making her look so uneasy. I saw many dark specks in the water, darting back and forth, clearly alive. They were tadpoles. I dream of names and cancer. When I was 4, I killed my first ant. It didn't have a name. Of that, I was absolutely certain. My own name isn't important to you right now, although it's likely you'll learn some version of it soon. I think you'll end up learning a lot about me in the coming days. Some will be true, most will be false. There is a crucial element that will be missed, simply because it's unknowable to anyone else. Anyone but me. But I'm going to share it with you. At the age of 19, as a soldier, I killed my first person. He had a name. Of that too, I was absolutely certain. And he changed me. My act of violence led me to learn who he was and what he meant to others. And, at the same time, I learned something essential about myself. Something I was unprepared for. I recoiled in profound, uncomprehending terror. Today, I work in a hospice. No one knows what I've done. No one knows who I really am. They think I'm there to work, which is technically true, but I have more tasks than those given to me by supervisors. One particular task, one I've prepared for and dreamed about, is to be done today. Today is when I learn whether or not I'm gonna die. Today is my 522nd birthday. Believe it, don't believe it. It doesn't matter to me. When I killed my first person at the age of 19, I did more than take his life. I assumed parts from him. He was a left-handed blacksmith apprentice named Pierre Gaultier. The moment he breathed his final breath, my left hand lost its sinister clumsiness. I instantaneously understood the basics of metalworking. I learned his name, I felt his name, It was as familiar to me as my own. It was the most horrifying moment of my life, the most disorienting. And that night, using my new left hand, I tried to cut my own throat. The blade passed over my skin as if it was iron. I later hanged myself from a beam in an abandoned abbey, only to dangle uselessly for 3 days before I was found and cut down by a local. I begged him to take my life, but I didn't have enough money to make it worth his while. When I killed him in a rage of frightened and confused desperation, I absorbed his alcoholism. The following centuries were a haze of blood and drink. I've absorbed countless talents, countless traits, countless vices, but the names aren't countless. There are 7,339 names inside me now. 7,339 clusters of memories to haunt me. This all leads to today. For 500 years, I've stayed under the radar. I've hidden in the shadows and killed and killed and killed, hoping to absorb any knowledge someone might have of another man like me. Another man who shares my curse. But I'm unique. No one's like me. Every open throat and subsequent transfer of name and ability has yielded nothing useful. Nothing useful, that is, until last month. He was a man called Gustav Brennerson, and along with his name, he transferred me his influenza. It was the first time I've ever been sick. The hospice here has 44 beds. 41 are filled. 41 opportunities. I dream of names and cancer every night while I'm being taunted by the false death of sleep. Tonight, wherever it is I may lay my head, as it sees with 41 new names, I pray it sees with something new, something malignant, something terminal, something that will end these centuries of hideous wandering. I dream of being eaten alive.